Well, this evening, lots to talk about. We will be taking your calls a little bit later as well. But first of all, before we talk about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's £150 million transfer budget, where United have been predicted to finish in the league, and a few other things about Sancho and a couple of other things as well, I just want to say that, look, we're in a situation at the moment that we never predicted we would be in at the start of April, whereby you've got, lockdown, no football and all that jazz. And it's not jazz, is it? It's not jazz. It's the blues that we're playing, which may well be jazz. I'm getting myself confused. But my point is that Pep Guardiola's mother died today of this virus. And a lot of other mothers and brothers and sisters and children, unfortunately, grandparents, friends are going to die and are dying of this virus. So as a football family, I think rivalries are really important, but I think everybody at the moment realises that as much as we love football and everything, we're in a fight against this as a human race. So condolences to Manchester City and specifically Pep Guardiola in relation to his mother. I think we can all agree that whatever you think about Pep Guardiola, and I'm not going to say anything bad about Pep in this situation, but he comes across as a really nice, intelligent guy. So you can only imagine what his mum and dad were like, or I don't know whether his dad's still alive, but thoughts and condolences to Pep and everybody else who is suffering from this global issue that we have right now. But look, the show must go on, and we start with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's £150 million transfer budget that apparently he has available this summer. I'm going to talk what I think and get some of your comments about whether that's enough, how we get that money, what we do with that money, is it affected by the global thing. But the Evening Standard sort of fits into this story as well, and they've been saying today that back in September, Manchester United sat down with Solskjaer and there was a statement that they needed a right winger, a centre forward and a centre midfielder. And that, I think, would fit in with what a lot of us would say is what Manchester United's priority is. But it's interesting, if that conversation was taking place in September, do we now have the centre forward in Ighalo? Do we now have the centre midfielder in Bruno? And are we now just looking at the right winger? And that's what made me think this conversation, if it had been in the last couple of weeks, I'd be like, yeah, we're getting a forward, we're getting a midfielder and we're getting a right winger. But this conversation apparently took place back in September. Well, we've acquired Bruno since then. We're trying to keep Ighalo. Centre midfielder, attacker, is just the right winger. Is that just what we're looking at? So interesting to grab the concept on that. Now, the story in relation to the £150 million transfer budget, that is separate to the Evening Standard story. And I think the interesting thing about this is, and we spoke about it lunchtime because Pogba's back in the news again, is this £150 million dependent on Paul Pogba's money? Is that where we're getting this money from? And are we putting ourselves into a situation where basically if Pogba goes, we bring Sancho in? Or are we going to keep Pogba and bring Sancho in? If I've got £150 million, then I would be looking to spend £150 million. It's not a lot of money to spend. And of course, a lot of it depends on what the value of the market is in the new world that we're operating in now. But I would say you're only going to get two players out of £150 million. And for me, it's probably going to be Sancho and a Grealish, or a Sancho and a Werner, because Werner's about £50 million, Grealish is about £50 million, and Sancho's £100 million. So it's two signings, I think, for United. And I wonder what position we're going to look at beyond Sancho. Are we going to go for another midfielder, or are we going to go for a striker? And I think United will be thinking about keeping Ighalo. And I'm not convinced that's the right or wrong thing to do. I'm not going either way on that. I think Ighalo's had a very, very, very good start to his time at United, but so did Ole, and then we felt that we made a mistake keeping him as a long-term manager. So it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting what we do, but I think £150 million is probably about right. It's around what we look to spend each season, although it's not always that net spend. But I think the priority's got to be Sancho. I saw somebody just on social media, I just saw it, I was coming up just before I came live, and they were like, it made me laugh actually. They were like, I tell you what, controversial opinion, but I'd be happy with just Ndidi and Sancho in the summer. And I just like, controversial opinion, I'd prefer living through the summer. It's just like an obvious statement. It's not controversial to say you'd be happy with just Ndidi and Sancho in the summer. Oh, hello, controversial opinion, I'll just be happy with Messi and Ronaldo in the summer. It's like, it's not controversial. If we get Sancho and Ndidi, I'm dancing around the garden, which I do most days anyway. But I am. I think Sancho and Ndidi would be an elite summer. I honestly would say, controversial opinion, I'll be happy with just Sancho this summer. And I don't know what you lot think, and I want to sort of get your combinations of how you would spend £150 million, of course. But I just think in this world that we live in at the moment, if you're telling me we come out this summer with Jaden Sancho, I think, and I put this out as a tweet today, guaranteed there's major bargains to be had this summer if you've got some money. And I think what we might see is your PSGs, your Manchester Cities, your Chelseas, and maybe a couple of others are really going to clean house this summer if they're brave enough to clean house, because they've got the money. And I said this a couple of weeks ago, if you're Lille and you've got Babakary Samari, and I'm using Lille as an example here, but the French clubs beyond PSG are losing money, revenue, everything. And they've got Babakary Samari, who was probably worth 40 million. Guarantee they're going to take 20, 10, 15 for him in the summer if they've got financial problems. Some of these clubs are going to need to spend to survive. And there is going to be a lot of bargains to be had about there. And I heard somebody say a couple of days ago, oh, what's the point in our recruitment and our scouting at the moment? Massively important. They should be more busy than they've ever been. You know, they should be looking around the world, and obviously they can't watch games, but they should be looking around. The great thing about scouting is you can contact Lille or find somebody who can give you Lille's last 20 games. You know, you can watch every game bloody Sao Paulo have played this season whilst you're sat on your arse instead of watching Netflix. All right, it's not the same as being at the game, but you can get all this information. And if I was United and I had money to spend, this is an opportunity that I think, you know, it's a bit like the old, that spider, that female spider that after they've done it eats the male spider. You know, your job is done. You're useless. I'm going to eat you now. And I think that sounds crude, but I think this is an opportunity. There will be people like supermarkets who are going to make loads of money out of this crisis, and there's going to be people like pubs and chains and that are going to lose money because they can't open. And in football, there will be clubs that have got to sell in this summer transfer window to survive. And a player that they thought they were going to get 40 million for, they might have to take 20, 15 million for. And you can pick up a major bargain then. Is it enough if Pogba stays and Ighalo stays and Sancho comes in, says Chris White? I mean, look, technically probably it isn't, Chris. But I do think that if you're offering me Sancho now, I'm taking Sancho now and I'll walk away from the transfer market. Because I'm not totally sure that United want to spend that sort of money. And to be honest with you, I've got to commend United in the way that they've handled things, but I don't necessarily disagree if they walk away. Hi Mark, as much as we all love football on here, I would just like to give my deepest thoughts to all those that have died in this terrible times. Is Cantona the greatest number 7? And a fantastic comment, mate, and appreciated, and I'm sure everybody would appreciate that as well, because it is a very serious time for everybody. Just a little bit of topical stuff as well before we delve into that, what I'm talking about a little bit more. And Buster Nut says, on Sanchez, why not offer a swap with Ighalo? His club are offering 400k, that's Sanchez wage. Would Sanchez be a better player than Ighalo in China? Win-win. Does Sanchez want to go to China, Buster Nut? That's the thing with that. But a few topical things to bring you up to date with. I mean, look, the Glazers, Ed Woodward, have taken a lot of stick over the last few years, quite rightly, but we're living in an unprecedented time at the moment where people are dying, where governments and countries financially are on their knees, and football clubs really should have a responsibility with the millions and millions of pounds they make to find their way through this problem without going cap in hand to the government. Manchester United have never ever said they're going to do that. Manchester United have always said, we will pay our staff. We are going to pay our staff through this situation, through our own pocket. Spurs haven't, and they haven't retracted yet. Liverpool Football Club were going to go cap in hand to the government. They've retracted in the last few hours. Liverpool are now going to cover the costs themselves. I applaud that from Liverpool. I disagree with why they ever thought it was a good idea, and so do most of their fans, to be fair. But fair play to Manchester United. We've never said that's going to happen. We've always said we will pay our way. And that is something that in a time where we've always been very critical of the Glazers and Woodward, they have handled this right. And you know what? One right doesn't make all the wrongs wrong, but we got it right on this in a very important time. Our football club got it right. So I applaud Manchester United on that. Also, this is quite interesting as well. Manchester United were due to go back into training on April the 10th. That has now been suspended indefinitely, much like the return to football itself is suspended indefinitely. This does not mean it's not going to happen. It just means United are not going back into training anytime soon. Interestingly, remember I've been saying for a few weeks now, the league that gets their football league back first is going to get a lot of eyes and a lot of money because people are craving football. And you imagine, well, I'll tell you the story. Dortmund have been back in training for a week. Not close proximity training, but in pairs. Bayern Munich back in training today. Distance training, but they're all on the pitch, doing stuff. But Germany have handled this crisis quite well in comparison to other countries because they've got more beds to people and have got a better health service. It's looking at the moment like Germany might get their Bundesliga back before anybody else. So, as I said on Twitter, I've got my Hoffenheim shirt on order. I'm not a Hoffenheim fan, really. I just picked out an obscure Bundesliga side. So, looking like the Bundesliga, at very least, they're keeping their players properly trained. United probably aren't going to be doing that till the end of May. And the Bundesliga may well be back before anything else. So, keep an eye on that. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's not right for it. It's not. Premier League can't win that race. We can't win that race because we are behind everybody else. So, we should not be back in training at the moment, 100%. Would trading Pogba for Sancho ever be an option, says Cody Ricardo? No. I mean, Pogba's not going to go to Borussia Dortmund, unfortunately. Woodward is the problem because he is the clown to give Sancho a big contract. And we should swap Pogba for Sancho. It's a win-win. It's not going to happen. We're not going to swap Pogba for Sancho, are we? We're not going to swap Pogba for Sancho. And another thing that I found quite interesting from today, and I don't know whether many of you saw it before we go back to what we were talking about. The Opta have ran through the last... So if we come back for the Premier League season, we've got 9 games like everybody else. And our first game will probably be Spurs away. So they've basically run through the last 9 games based on stats and everything like that 10,000 times, and they've come out with the mean average of where everyone will finish. No surprise, Liverpool are first, City second, Leicester third, Manchester United fifth with 62 points, or 61 points I think it was, and Chelsea fourth with 63 points. So it has United finishing in 5th place on 61 or 62 points. I disagree with that. I think United will finish above Chelsea. But it's interesting, if we do finish 5th with 61 or 62 points, our worst ever Premier League finish was David Moyes' 64 points. So they're saying we're on track to have our worst ever Premier League season and finish 5th, which, is quite a sobering thought, but I don't agree with that. I think United will finish 4th. What do you think of Luke Shaw saying the season should be cancelled and Liverpool be denied the title, or do you think it was just banter? This is Adams Enacola. I really appreciate that, Adams, because I've been doing my FIFA stream this afternoon. Mark Goldbridge, That's Football. It's episode 20 of my career mode. It's going quite well if you want to get on and watch that. I do it live every afternoon. And I sometimes, when I'm playing, I talk about topical stuff. And I haven't spoken about the Luke Shaw thing on the United stand. So basically, Luke Shaw was trending this afternoon on Twitter. And I looked at it and I was like, Luke Shaw is one of my favourite players. What's all this about? And effectively, what they said is that Luke Shaw has said that the season should be cancelled and it should go into... it should be cancelled and voided. Now, Luke Shaw said this when playing FIFA yesterday afternoon on a charity stream for coronavirus, and he didn't say that. What he actually said is, if we can't complete the season should be voided and cancelled because you can't give Liverpool the title. They missed the bit at the start out where he said, if the season can't be finished. He's not saying, let's cancel it now. How stupid would it be for a footballer to be sat here saying, let's cancel it now when there's an opportunity to finish it? He didn't say that. He said, if we can't finish the season, it should be voided and cancelled, which is correct. You can't hand Liverpool the title after 29 games. And Luke Shaw's just saying what's common sense. But it's been twisted by the media as a headline that he's saying cancel it now. So what they're trying to do is basically say Luke Shaw's trying to banter Liverpool fans by saying don't give him the title, which is not what he said. He said, if we can't finish the season, cancel it, which is common sense. And you got Liverpool fans on social media having a go at him, and he's not actually said to do that. So yeah, I don't disagree with that. What else? Also, Raphael Honigstein, who is a German journalist, works for The Athletic. He has a podcast, I think. Interesting quotes from that again. He's basically said over the last couple of months that Sancho will come to the Premier League. I think it was last week he said that United are favourites to sign him. He's also said that Manchester United can't offer Sancho titles or Champions League football potentially at the moment, but what they can offer him is to be the leading star in the team of the future, and that appeals to Jaden Sancho. So just a little bit about Sancho there. Igalo is a stopgap for a year. I think we should go for Inter Skriniar or to help Maguire and Sancho, and maybe a straight swap involving Pogba for Dybala, says Reach S. And how do I watch the charity stream, says Tyler Paul. It was on Twitch, mate. If you go on my Twitter from yesterday, you'll see the tweet I tweeted out about it, and there's a link to it there, so you'll be able to watch it. Mark, talking about Dan James lost the form, do you know he has the highest assists this season for United? And what about your thoughts about Duncan Ferguson? Is he better than Ollie? Says Nee Desmond. Duncan Ferguson? Well, I don't know what you're on about. Duncan Ferguson's an Everton player. Mark, talking about... Yeah, I've done that one. Boring. Ndidi will cost us more than expected because Leicester are hard to break in the transfer market, says Vlogfam. We're not even in for Ndidi. So let's go back to what we were talking about at the start, this £150 million. Now, there's two avenues for this. If the £150 million that Ollie's supposedly got this summer window, this is what I always thought if we sold Pogba. Ollie's got 150 million. So I don't think it's... I'll be surprised if Pogba stays and he's got 150 million. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's Pogba goes, you've got 150 million, which to me would be Sancho and Grealish. That's the deal. £100 million for Sancho, £50 million for Grealish, £150 million, and we get around 100, 120 for Pogba. So the net spend is minimal again. It's 30 to 40 million. I think before this crisis, my feeling was that this was going to be... before the crisis, we would have got £120 million for Pogba, we would have spent £100 million on Sancho, and we would have spent 60 on Grealish, so we would have spent net 40. That was how I always thought this summer was going to go. I think if we keep Pogba and we've got £150 million, I would be tempted to say, get Sancho and try and get Werner, because Werner's 50 million, Sancho's 100, you get a striker, you get a right winger. So that's what I would do. What would you do? £150 million, what would you do with it? I mean, you're not going to get Ndidi for anything cheaper than probably 60 million. So you could just about do Ndidi and Sancho, but I don't think United will go for a CDM. I really don't think Manchester United are going to look at a centre defensive midfielder. I don't. So I still... I mean, look, we spoke about it at lunchtime. Obviously, I had Al on, and I didn't really delve into it too deep, but L'Equipe and AS talking separately about Paul Pogba, effectively wanting to force a move out of Manchester United. And I think that is interesting in the sense that I have to go with what Solskjaer said. I have to go with what I've been told, that United don't want to sell Pogba and aren't going to sell Pogba. But I always get drawn into this. Why do these stories keep coming out? If Pogba wants to go, how far will he push it? And if Pogba did go, and you brought in a Grealish, how much would that impact Manchester United? I think the interesting thing is, and I've said this so many times, we can have all the stories we like about Paul Pogba, but I don't think the decision about Pogba gets made until this season is completed. Because I think what they're going to do with the transfer window, it's meant to open up in the middle of May, I think that transfer window won't open up until our season's been completed in July at the earliest. So Pogba will be fit to play games for Manchester United when the season comes back, and he will play with United. And when he plays with United, if we play really well, will that be enough for him to want to stay? Sell him already, says Jonathan Gallagher. Would love to see us getting Sancho and someone like Samari and wait to possibly get Haaland, says Ryan Benjamin Jr. Pogba leaves for 120 million, says Evmit 100. Bring in Sancho for 100, then bring in Grealish for 65. Then we have spent 45 million, which I think is quite realistic, mate. It is quite realistic. And Ndidi isn't worth 60 million, 40 million tops, says Stephen Diak. Mate, we paid £80 million for Harry Maguire a year ago, and you're telling me Ndidi's worth half what Harry Maguire's worth when Ndidi is a more important player for Leicester. When Leicester don't have Ndidi, they're not the same team. So he's that Leicester. The problem with paying £80 million for Harry Maguire was that Leicester can always say, well, we're not taking any less than 80 when we got Harry Maguire for 80. Can we really get Sancho without selling Pogba, says Ayub? And I think that is the key question here. Can we really get Sancho without getting Pogba? And Manchester United need to look at that in a very serious situation and see how and why, how they're going to do that. Because I think it has to be done. I think it's worth doing, and I think you could stagger the payments on that. I mean, I'm sure you could say to Dortmund, look, Dortmund are going to say, don't care about, well, I do care about the global crisis, but with regards to football, we're not going to give you Sancho on the cheap. And United are going to have to say, look, we need to set up some sort of deal here whereby we will give you £100 million, but we will give it you over 4 years. We'll give you 25 million a year over the next 4 years, because we don't know how our finances are going to work. And maybe you could do something like that. We need to build in this team, says Sally Devil Red 7. And if Pogba wants to go, flirt him out as soon as possible. Do we need players that don't be at United? A big fat no, says Kenneth Grant. And Sancho is agreed, says Ashley Monty. We could sell Pereira. I know Sancho is an immense talent and I would be a great acquisition, but with money being tight, if we can get someone like Son for a cheaper price, that would be great also, says Adams and Nicola. I'm just seeing something in the live comments that's just making my stomach turn a little bit here. So I'm just going to check something, because I don't normally do this, but I'm just feeling a little bit uneasy about this. So I just want to just double check it. Yeah. Okay, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been moved to intensive care in hospital after his symptoms worsened. Oh, it makes you sick. Makes you sick, that does. Lingard, Pereira, Smalling, Jones, extra 55 million, says Nick Sorg. Yeah, that's Riff MU says Mark James Cooper said the fee and wages won't be a problem for Sancho and that he wants to come to United. Rashi will have a part in bringing him here. Thank you very much for that. Yeah, so breaking news that our Prime Minister in the UK, Boris Johnson's gone into intensive care with his condition worsening, and it just makes me feel a little bit sick. And I don't know. Well, I do know why. He's obviously not very well, and politically, I know that this, there'll be a lot of people out there that aren't conservative or anything like that. But I've got to be honest. I've always warmed to Boris Johnson, and I think a lot of it goes back to the "Have I Got News for You" days when he used to be a presenter of it. But I don't think it would matter if it was Jeremy Corbyn, the Queen, or whatever representative of our country. Donald Trump, whoever. I know we can all have our opinions on their politics, but it's a big statement when your Prime Minister of your country is in intensive care with this horrible disease, and it makes you start to panic quite a lot, because if somebody of that position can fall so badly to this virus, then it leaves us all vulnerable and uncertain tonight. And I definitely feel that, and I definitely feel concerned and more sickened and concerned and worried than I actually thought I would, because I wasn't expecting it, and it's quite frightening to think that this could take another turn for the worse with regards to our Prime Minister. So, look, whatever your politics are, I think I am massively concerned about that, and thoughts and prayers are obviously with him. And I know a lot of people say, well, he's just a human being. A lot of people are dying. He's made decisions that I don't agree with, and I totally agree with all that. But this is a status thing. I mean, look, it's not JFK. It's not JFK of the 60s, but this is our Prime Minister, and this is a global crisis, and our Prime Minister's in intensive care. So, it's more of the status of that. That's quite a big thing to get your head around, and quite a worrying thing as well. So, hopes and prayers with him, definitely. Hi, Mark. What about Hakimi? He is flexible, young, and fast. Can play right back and right winger, says Kjelst Husland. And a lot of people saying that they're praying for Boris tonight. It's been confirmed that he has gone into intensive care, which is rather strange, because this afternoon, went into hospital yesterday, and the symptoms were meant to be. I mean, I'm just thinking of a tweet of be at Piers Morgan this afternoon as well, demanding to know why he's in hospital if their symptoms aren't that bad. I mean, this is Boris. This is Piers Morgan again, isn't it? Gobbing off like the people's prime minister. Maybe they didn't want to panic the country. Maybe they didn't want to panic the country and say his symptoms are really bad. We're quite concerned, but we're just saying it's precautionary at the moment. It's just this constant wall-to-wall bloody I want to know. You present Good Morning Britain. You're a shit Daily Mirror editor. Shut your mouth. What about Sanchez? Is he coming back fit for a fight? Says Jenks1102. And Sanchez must be sold, says Andre Not Giant. The problem is that nobody will buy Smalling, Jones, Pereira or Lingard, says Cave Amada. I mean, that's a very good point. I think in relation to United, we do have a situation whereby we're going to have... I believe that the money will be there for Jaden Sancho, but I do think that also Ollie's going to have to remove players. And what I'm trying to say is I can't see a situation where Pogba stays and United buy a midfielder. I can see a situation where Pogba stays and we buy Jaden Sancho. But if you buy Jaden Sancho and you buy a midfielder, you're going to pay Sancho around £200,000 a week. Easy, maybe more. You're going to pay Jack Grealish around £120,000 a week. Easy. And then you've still got Juan Mata, 150 grand a week. Jesse Lingard, 100 grand a week. Jones, 80 grand a week. Sanchez, 350 or 400 grand a week. Chris Smalling still at the club, 80 grand a week. You know, Pereira, however many grand a week. We've still got a lot of players at our club that won't even be on the bench next season. So we've got to try and remove players as well. So I think it's going to be a very difficult transfer window for Manchester United to establish. And it's going to be a very difficult transfer window in the end, isn't it? How is Mark supposed to know if Boris is going to be okay, says Gabriel. Yeah, I'm not going to answer anything more about that. I mean, I've got to be honest, it's taken me by more of a surprise than I thought it would. I don't like those sort of things. Sort of things because whatever anybody says... I'd feel the same actually if they said it about Donald Trump. I think when you get these big people who represent your countries or the world in many ways, and that sort of thing happens, it suddenly makes you feel very vulnerable yourself. So yeah, fingers crossed. Hopefully everything will be okay. But it just shows though. What it does show is what I've been saying for a long time: is stay home, stay safe. And don't go and have a barbecue, and don't go to an 18th party, and don't go for a walk somewhere you shouldn't go. And stay at home, because whatever happens with Boris, he's got access. I mean, this is the guy who's in meetings about how we as a country and the world work through this crisis. If he's got it and he's in intensive care, he's got the best medical people around him with the best medical care. And if he's in intensive care, what chance have any of us got if we get it bad? So this is what I mean. We've got to take this very, very, very seriously. It's a major blow, and it's a major issue worldwide that we've got to work our way through. So yeah, wash your hands and stay at home, says Prince 9. The topic got serious, so I think it's off for today. Yeah, in relation to the call-in, I ain't going to do a call-in now. I'll stay live for a little bit longer, but I don't think a call-in at this moment in time is the way forward. I certainly am not at that mindset at the moment, but I will stay live for a little bit and do some calls. No, not calls. Some live comments. But look, I've got to be honest. I feel a bit put out by this. And concerned more than I thought I would. I mean, I was just thinking, like, when the show finishes, I'm going to go and watch something on Netflix. But I know I'll just be lying there thinking, you know, checking my phone and everything like that. And you're just sort of scared. You're scared. I mean, intensive care can mean many things. But I've got to be honest. We've sort of had a contingency plan for the United stand. If, like, let's just say, if I get it, then... what we basically said is that there will just be no shows for 3 weeks because you've got to rest. And I do wonder in the case of Boris if he's got mild symptoms, but then he's constantly doing calls. He's when you're talking and when I'm doing a show like this, you're using your lungs. You're using your lungs because you're talking and you're breathing and you're not resting. And I just wonder whether, has he rested up as much as he should do? Kjeld Helsland says that the deaths are slowing down in the UK at the moment. The biggest mistake UK and the world could do is let loose too quickly. I'm not going to get into those sort of politics of that. So let's try and bring it back to football. Get rid of Lingard because he never got opportunities under Ollie than Mourinho gave him. This is totally cheesy, okay? And your little thank you Draughty Devil for getting rid of Hansel. The word wanker was never more appropriate. And Diddy is £50 million tops. Abdul, all right, I'm happy to do this because it's an easy conversation to have. How much is Ndidi worth? How much is Ndidi worth? Because I've seen somebody say he's worth 40 million. I've seen somebody say he's worth 50 million tops. We bought Harry Maguire from Leicester City less than a year ago for £80 million, and Ndidi has proven to be the most important player in that Leicester City side, who are third in the league. You take away Man City and Liverpool, and Leicester are the best team in England. Fact, because of where they are in the league. When Ndidi got injured in February, Leicester went shit. Ndidi, massively important player for Leicester. And how can so many of you say Ndidi would be brilliant for United, and then you've got people saying he's worth 40 million tops? Ndidi's worth 70 million starting bids, and probably Leicester would want more. But you don't understand the quality of that player if you think he's worth 50 or 40 million. No, not in a million years. Not in a million years will Leicester sell for that anyway. And a lot of people, George Carl says 60, Pranish says 85 to 90, Jay White 70, 80 million at least, says Vlog Fam, 70 says Bren, Evmit says 85, and Smutty says who cares. And yeah, I would say somewhere between 60 and 80 million is going to be Ndidi, to be honest with you. Don Snap says it's a fake third, he ain't going for more than 50 million. Well, in the current market, you might be right on that. I mean, we're talking about pre-lockdown. Here's the one for you. Is Jaden Sancho worth £100 million now? Because I'll tell you what, he's not. No way is he worth £100 million now. We might have to pay £100 million, and Dortmund might dig their feet into the ground about this, but I would say that Jaden Sancho is worth no more than 75 million now because of what's happened to the global transfer market. Paul Pogba, maybe we wanted 130 million before. I think 80 million now, tops, yeah. Chris White says Ndidi's the best holding midfielder in the league at £70 million. Mark, why do Manchester United want so many Leicester players, says Heine. We're not linked to any Leicester players. Maddison, I think we've retracted because he's going to be too expensive. I don't think United are in for any Leicester players, actually. I think they'd like some Leicester players, but I don't think we're seriously in for any Leicester players at all at the moment. 70 million max for Sancho now, says Gabriel Medina. And what a player is worth isn't the same as what they cost, says Happy Coding. Yeah, well, no, I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, Harry Kane, Paul Pogba, Neymar, Mbappe, they can talk about wanting a move, but they're not in control anymore. They're locked into big long contracts, or long enough contracts that they can't force the move themselves. And clubs will sell if they want to sell, but who will want to buy in this market today? I'm sure a lot of people would like a Pogba or an Mbappe or a Harry Kane, but are you going to pay the price? And that's why Dortmund are in quite a strong position, because I don't think Dortmund want to sell Sancho. And they don't have to sell Sancho. Man United don't have to sell Pogba. Spurs don't have to sell Harry Kane. So then it's over to the player to go, how much are you three going to push it to get the move that you want? How far are you willing to take this? are you going to, tarnish your reputation with the club that you've been at with the last few years and make it really difficult? Interesting times ahead. And not one player, which is why it surprises me about Pogba today, because I can't see that this has come from Pogba in AS or L'Equipe. Because in this current climate, where we've got our Prime Minister in intensive care, Pep's mum's dying, lots of people are dying, are you, Paul Pogba, going to say, get it out in the press, Mino, I'm going to force my way out, I'm going to go on strike? Nobody's going to do that in their right mind. I don't think Pogba's the sort of player to do that anyway, but nobody in their right mind's going to force a move at the moment. Morally, you've got to stick with where you are. I think Sancho's going to Chelsea, says High Nib. Never say never with Chelsea. I remember a few years ago, I can't remember what year it was. Was it like, at a guess, I'd say, was it 2012? Was it 2012? 2011? 2012 maybe? Chelsea won the Champions League and Hazard went to Chelsea. But United and City were favourites for a long time. And then Chelsea won the Champions League and he went to Chelsea. So Hazard, I really wanted him to come to United. There was talk he was going to go Man City and then he ended up going to Chelsea. I don't think he would have gone to Chelsea if they hadn't won that Champions League final against Bayern Munich. So, because they weren't going to be in the Champions League. So, you just don't know. You don't know. And I do think that there is a lot of football still to be played when it comes back, and that will obviously have a part to play. I would hope he'll come to United, because I've said it a few times about Sancho. I did the 5 reasons why we should sign him. But if you want to compare Chelsea with United, which I haven't done, Chelsea have got Hudson-Odoi, Ziyech, and Pulisic off the top of my head, who are people who can play out wide and play out wide well, and they can play on the right. All 3 of them can play on the right. United haven't got a right-sided player. We haven't got one. Dan James can play there, but he's better on the left. Rashford and Martial we think can play there, but never have. Lingard and Mata can't play there, and we've tried that. We don't have anybody to play off the right. We simply just don't have anybody. So, Chong plays there for the youth and under 23s, but he's not a first teamer yet anyway. So we don't have anyone to play off the right, and I think that could be quite an important thing for Sancho. Going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, it appeals to Sancho apparently that whilst United won't be winning titles straight away, he'll be a leading star in a team that's going to build towards doing that. And there is nobody on that right hand side for Manchester United. So, I'm not saying he's definitely coming to United. I'm not saying he's not going to go to Chelsea. But at United, compared to Liverpool or anywhere else, we have got a position that basically that's yours, mate. That is yours, because we have nobody else. Dalot to Spurs, apparently, says Jamie. I don't agree with this. Dalot to Spurs story. I don't think there's anything in it at all. I think what's happened there is that it's 2 + 2 is 4, isn't it? Mourinho bought Dalot, Portuguese, liked him, and he's not played that much football for United this season, but he's been very injured. And I think what I'd like to see with Dalot is what we've got with Shaw and Williams on the left-hand side, is some competition for Wan-Bissaka. The problem is with Dalot that Wan-Bissaka is just absolutely superb. So, Lejo Fargis says, barely will any transfers happen this window. No club wants to sell their players for so less. If they are not desperate to buy another, clubs are going to wait another season to sell. I disagree because, as I said before, and I'm using them as an example, but it could be a championship club, it could be relegated, it could be Premier League clubs, like your Burnleys who don't have massive revenues. I think most Premier League clubs should be okay because there's so much money distributed fairly in the Premier League. But in France, in Italy, in Spain, maybe Portugal as well, Championship, clubs where they're living hand to mouth and they don't have loads of money, they may have to sell to survive. And I think it's always been a seller's market, the transfer market. From 90 million for Pogba, 200 million for Neymar, ridiculous amounts of money. You imagine this scenario. The best example I can give you is this. We spent all of January negotiating with Sporting Lisbon for Bruno Fernandes, knowing that Sporting Lisbon need money. I always felt that Bruno was worth 60 million. We got him for 47. I thought, realistically, we should have got him in quicker. We should have got him in 2 weeks. We should have got him in the summer, but we should have got him in at the start of January because we lost to Burnley and we wouldn't have lost that game. That's 3 points with Bruno we didn't get. Imagining we didn't sign Bruno. Imagine in the summer we go back to Sporting Lisbon and Sporting Lisbon haven't got that 50 million and they've got all this global crisis. Do you think Sporting Lisbon are going to sit there going, we want 60 million? We might have got him for 30. Because if Sporting... And I'm only using Sporting Lisbon as an example, but if you've got money problems or you don't have a lot of money and then this happens, you're in trouble. How are you going to get money? Are you going to sit there with your prize asset going, we need 15 million to survive. We want 50. We'll give you 30. Forget it. You're going to take the 30 because you need that 15 million to survive. And it might not be what you were going to get a few months ago, but you're going to have to do it. And there will be clubs like that. And that's why I think Manchester United, if they've got money, they should be looking at that situation because it's not our fault if Lille need to get rid of Samori for half the price he was worth 3 months ago. We're still giving money to a club to survive. They're just not getting an inflated figure that they wanted. So there could be some bargains to be had there. But you're right. I think some clubs will say, look, let's stick with what we've got because some clubs won't have money to spend, but they'll just have a situation they can survive with what they've got. So you're right in one way, but I also think there will be some clubs that just need to sell players. We'd be in 8th without Bruno, says Jamie. Kjelt Helsland says, we need a leader, CDM role and a striker. Don't forget, Mark, I think Gomez could play in the right wing role, but Sancho is key to get James back up for him. Greenwood and Martial fighting up front. And wash hands of Sanchez, Jones and Jesse. Stay safe, says Johnny B. Goodwin. Going to be very hard to do that. Very hard to get rid of players that are underperforming. I don't think there's going to be a queue. I think clubs are going to go for what their priority is and not what a comfort is. Is there going to be many clubs going, we really want Phil Jones, we really want Jesse Lingard, we really want Alexis Sanchez, we really want Andreas Pereira? I don't think there will be a queue for those sort of players, and that could be a problem for us as well. Ollie still needs to go. We're losing sight of the most important thing. The football players coming in and out is secondary. Poch can do all this as well, but at least as fans we can see a proper vision, says Daniel. And do you think Bruno can bring out the best in Sanchez, says Don? Not unless you can give him a couple of yards of pace that he's lost. I've seen Sanchez a few times. I've seen him live a couple of times, and he's lost a yard of pace, at least. Can Fosu Menza be a backup and Delo be a right wing backup, says friend Sridhar. Fosu Menza's not really back yet, is he? And he's had a very bad injury. And he also had 2 loans at Palace and Fulham, which I would say were failures. Fosu Menza's a well-liked player, and I think we've always said CDM. Fosu can be a CDM, but he's not even established himself as anything yet. So I would like to see him given a chance, but he's coming back from a bad injury. He's coming back from 2 bad loans. It's going to be something miraculous for Fosu Mensah to come back and have a career at United, to be fair. But I hope he can. I really do hope he can. Delo is a decent squad player, says Vandy Candy. Stephen Carlton says, I'm sending all our best to our Prime Minister. And don't know why Bilal's saying going for Goldbridge. This isn't going for Goldbridge. And Ayoub says, why are we looking to replace Pogba when he's one of the best CMs in the world? If we want to be winners, we need to keep him. Well, Ayoub, you're absolutely spot on. I don't think United... Well, I know United aren't looking to replace Pogba. They're not looking to sell Pogba at all. Ollie said it. The club have said it. This is about what Paul Pogba wants. United are not sat there thinking, let's sell Paul Pogba. They don't want to sell Pogba. It's all about what Pogba wants to do at the end of the day. And that's what it's always been about. Always been about that. Look, difficult show tonight. Really weird scenario. Our Prime Minister in the UK has gone into intensive care, which we heard about halfway through the show. Quite sobering. Didn't allow us to do the call-in. Hopefully be able to do it tomorrow night. We'll just have to see where the world's going with this one. I think we all feared we were going to get something big happen with this, because we know it can get to everybody. And hopes and prayers are that it's not going to be in relation to Boris Johnson. Regardless of political background, I don't want this to be happening. Nobody should want this to be happening. It's a very scary time. But all I will do is reiterate what we should all be doing anyway, which is trying to avoid putting ourselves into situations or others where they can get this. So staying home, staying safe is really important, and none more so than now, because if the person who has access to the best medical minds in the country and is trying to fight this is now fighting for their own life, it just shows how vulnerable we all are to this, which I think we all know anyway. So stay safe, stay home. We'll be back tomorrow. Take care, and thanks everyone for watching. Smash the like on the video, and subscribe if you're new. There's some good content up for you today as well. And Shiraj says, thanks for all your streams in the pandemic. We will win this battle someday. Your content helps a lot. My prayers for Boris. Thank you, Shiraj. Thanks to everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care.